Thank you all. Thank you for inviting me again. I'm so happy to be with you all. I recognize some faces, so hello to all of you, and a big thank you from me for having me again. Uh, I just wanted to share that. So I'm as Reverend Rick told earlier, I'm from the other side of the Atlantic. I'm talking from Morocco. And Morocco is a Muslim country. They have 5 prayers per day called by the muezzin on top of the mosque. And as the Reverend was leading the prayer, the muezzin started to sing exactly at the same time. So I found that was beautiful, such a nice synchronicity. The world is very little after all. um, so as Katerina said, my passion and the core of my work is to help leaders. By leaders, I mean anyone in charge of anything, really, but most specifically people who lead teams or organization when they face or they have to go through a moment of transition. Okay, so since we are all leaders in our own way, I want to invite you to think for yourself about a moment where you had to transition to a new mission, bigger responsibilities, different responsibilities, a moment where you had to transition in your life. I'll give you a few seconds to recall that moment. And usually when people come to me and are ready to hire a coach, it's because this transition is hard. It's not going well, or they fear that they might risk something. I'm going to cite a few of the symptoms of a transition gone not bad, but gone hard. Okay, transition and what people come to me for typically can create emotional volatility, creative draw, an identity crisis that could lead to a loss of motivation. You don't know who you are anymore, so you don't know where to put your time and your energy. It almost all the time creates exposure and vulnerability, some scarcity, thoughts like I don't have what it takes to survive, or I don't have what it takes to make it. Loss of vision and direction, loneliness, and the challenge to having to deal with false fixes or limited beliefs, or trying to survive with or to make it with reaction or learned behaviors that are no longer relevant or no longer working for you. So I don't know if in that list, we're going to have a Q&A after, you can tell me more, but I don't know if in that list of symptoms you resonated with some of them. And I love working with image. And when I try to find an image for this, of course, well, you've read the topic for today, but most of the time, the image that comes is the image of a desert, okay? So a long time ago, I lived in Tunisia, and now I'm back in Morocco for the past year. So I had the chance of spending time in the desert and walking in the desert, and the parallel is so easy to draw. For the chaos of transition in the desert, it's also you also have like extreme temperature swings. It can be very hot in the day, very cold at night. You have severe aridity that makes me think of the creative draw. You have this very intense solar radiation that makes me think of the exposure and the vulnerability. You have a very high risk of resource depletion because there is nothing in the desert. So that makes me think of the scarcity that you can feel when you're going through a transition. You can risk rapid dehydration. It makes me think of loss of motivation. The space itself makes it very easy to feel completely disoriented because the dunes are constantly moving and there is no fix in your site that you can have your eyes on. So that makes me think of the loss of vision and direction that you can feel in a transition. You can feel extremely isolated in the desert. And of course, in the desert, marriage and illusions happens, as you might have heard. So that makes me think of how to survive with old ways of behaving that no longer work in this environment. So all of these things that you can feel in the desert, that's why people hire me as a coach for what they live in real life. And usually they come to me and they ask me to get them out of the desert. That's what they pay me for. They're like, please get me out of this desert season of my life. But as you are here, I am also a reader of the Bible, and I know that the desert is also something else. It also has something else to tell us. So I have a problem. I'm like, they are hiring me to get them out of the desert. So if I remember well, in some mention of the Bible, the desert is not only negative. So let's take our Bibles, or like at least metaphorically. In the Bible, you have more than 300 times, like the desert is mentioned more than 300 times. So I'm going to be brief here, but you have several words to mean desert. You have midbar in Hebrew, you have eremos in Greek, or haraba in Hebrew. So all of those words from the original text can be translated into desert or wilderness. And if you combine all those mentioned, you arrive to more than 300 times. So we will only take two examples tonight, Moses and Jesus. So Moses is mainly known in the grand culture by his time as a son of Pharaoh in English. Pharaoh, yeah, thank you. And then the time when he led the Hebrew outside of the desert. But I just want to remember tonight, I'm sure most of you know, he also spent between the two a long amount of time in the desert of Midian as a shepherd, getting ready, if you wish, to, go from a prince of Egypt to someone who is leading his people outside of Egypt. So he spent so many times in the desert between the two segments of his life. And Jesus himself has many recorded moments of desert retreats. He goes to the desert in the gospel to rest after an intensive work in Mark. After his apostles return from preaching, he brings them all to the desert to rest. He goes to the desert to process deep grief. After the death of John the Baptist, he withdrew to a solitary place. He goes to the desert to escape overwhelming crowds many times. He goes to the desert before major decisions. Just before he appointed his 12 apostles, he spent some time in the desert. But my favorite moment, and the one I use in my work, is the 40 days in the desert that happens right after his baptism. So you have the baptism where he's revealed to be the Son of God. And before he does any miracle, he spends 40 days fasting in the desert. So that makes me, already those little messages from the Bible makes me think instantly of some aspect of the transition process that are at play. And I have so many pieces of coaching theory or human development theory that are close or very parallel to that. I'll show you just one from someone I might have quoted last time because his theory has a shape that's easy to explain. So it's Otto Scharmer from the MIT. And you see, say any transformation, you go to one phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase, fifth phase. So that's how we explain transition. And the middle phase is called co-presencing, and it's a moment to retreat and to just be in the presence and to feel in the emptiness. That's just one example. I could give like 20 more. So what does the Bible and also some other coaching theories tell us? That yes, the desert is hard. If you've been to the desert, it can be a very painful place. It can be a very hard place. If you think back to the desert aspect of your own transition, your own life transition, I'm sure you can remember some very hard moments. But what do you have also in the desert? The desert, first, I'm going to share like 5 gems or 5 treasures of the desert. First, there is this absolute silence what happens very physically in a real desert is that you start to hear your own inner body. You hear your own heartbeats and the rhythmic rushing of blood in your ears. So similarly, in a life transition, if you want to hear yourself, hear your inner self, your inner voice, your inner thoughts, having a moment of desert is very positive. Then something very interesting that happens in the desert also, you see the stars like nowhere else. In some deep desert, like in Chile or in Morocco, when there is a night sky without any moon, you can even see shadows created by the Milky Way to give you an idea of the intensity of the star's light. So if we make the parallel to our life, that means that the little lights in our lives that are more subtle, more distant, more discreet, become much more acute and much more visible and can show us the way. The desert is also a great equalizer because there is no distraction. So it acts as a sensory reset button. You don't have any external markers to categorize or judge. So your brain stops sorting information and simply exists in the immediate present. So moment of desert offer us that as well. Like your brain don't have so much work, so you can reset and just concentrate on being. In the desert, something that people are surprised to see is you witness also constant silent metamorphosis. So if you stay seated in the same place for one day, throughout the day, the desert you're seated in the morning will be completely different from the desert you're sitting in the evening, because the wind is constantly moving the sand. So you witness and you learn from your eyes that life is never set in stone, and even the smallest grain of sand are constantly fluid, impermanent, alive, and moving. So that's also a great source of hope that nothing is never stuck, if I could say. So now if I'm weaving the Bible, my experience in the desert and my experience as a coach in transition, my conclusion is really that the desert is never a blank space. We often view seasons of waiting or isolation or career gaps or transition as wasting time, but in reality, the desert is highly active. It's like an incubation period. By the power of stripping away the noise, last time I came, we talked about silence, so I'm a big fan of silence. The desert removes all external validation, distraction, and clutter. For Moses, it was the noise of the palace. For Jesus, it was the noise of the crowds. And it forces absolute focus on the inner self and the divine voice. Like in the song earlier, the singer was saying, my prayer in the desert is, my God provides, I have a reason to worship. So from the desert, you can connect to God much more easily. What I learned also from the Bible is Jesus is revealed as the Son of God, and then the desert is a place through the devil's temptation. When he talks to Jesus, he's like, if you're the Son of God, do this, do that. And Jesus replies, no, actually not exactly this. Oh no, I'm not going to do that. So the desert acts as a laboratory to test his new identity, his new boundaries, before he goes into public life and he's faced with the chaotic pressure of fame or crowds or critics. His identity is like revealed and then tested in the desert. So it's like a carving out of the revelation, or like more revealing of the revelation. And for Moses, if we focus on the time in his time in the desert in Midian before he saved his people, it's like the time he has to strip away his old identity of a prince to transform into what he was called after, the most humble man on earth, which was the exact trait required to lead his people to a new nation. So I'm gonna come to the finale, and this is a message I'm trying to convey to some of my clients is to redefine our season of desert in our careers, in our life. So next time you feel like you're going through a desert and you feel emotionally volatile, you feel like you have a creative draw, you feel a loss of motivation, you feel vulnerable and exposed, you feel like you live in scarcity, you live through a loss of vision and direction, a loss of identity, you feel lonely, you feel stuck, or you experience that your old reactions or learned behaviors are no longer protecting you, my invitation is to rejoice. First, because you have two great masters to invite you there or to meet you there in the desert, Moses and Jesus, whose desert journey created so much fruits that we are still enjoying today. And from that choice, I have maybe two invitations to conclude. The first one is to shift your perspective. And I know I'm talking to a church, so you probably knew everything I said, but I know it's hard to forget. I know I've been there. I forgot when I was going through a desert season that there was a space to rejoice. And instead of asking, when will I get out of this place? Maybe start asking, what am I supposed to absorb? What am I supposed to learn or get stripped away from? Or what am I invited to get present with while I am here? And sometime you will not be able to skip this period if you want the strength required for what is to come. I also invite you to normalize the confusion. If you feel confused, lost, or stagnant, it doesn't mean you are failing. It might simply be this, the shape, the bottom shape of the U, or you're just invited to be and feel. The desert feels empty, but psychologically, it might be the most active room in your life. Invitation to use the desert as a filter. The desert filters out who you used to be, so there is room for who you are becoming. An invitation to embrace the suspension. So if you are in a desert, don't rush to the end of your transition. The stability you crave will come, but the depth you need might be happening while you are here in the quiet. And for my last invitation for anyone who is not feeling everything I mentioned and who is not in a desert season right now, is a question is, why not create moments of desert like Jesus, who was, if you read the gospel from beginning to end, it's really striking how many times he sends himself in the desert. So that will be my invitation to conclude. Why don't we all create moment of desert, even if we don't feel like we were organically put into it? But before they happen, we create those little moments for ourselves to savor all the fruits that the desert has to offer. And that will be my final word for now.
Well,
But
thank you
I'm
very
very
much,
excited about
Pauline.
the Q&A, as you know.
Yes, well, I'm going to open it up to Q&A. I have some questions, but I want to see, uh, first of all, beautiful, beautiful presentation, beautifully thought out, and so easy to follow. So you're a great teacher, and I appreciate that. Um, I want to see if anybody has any questions before I jump in with mine. Sherry?
You have to unmute. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
unmuted. Okay. Really lovely. I love the idea of looking at the desert as a positive thing and a necessary thing. And I'm wondering, when you work with clients, how do you help them transition? Like when they are, how do you help them to know when they are ready to come out? Because like I think of the Israelite story, with the spies, they like they weren't ready to come out and then they had to wander around 40 more years. So I'm just curious, like, how do you know when somebody is ready to come out of the desert?
Mm. So that's an excellent question, and frankly, I'm going to bring some vulnerability here. that's something I'm still working on for myself with my own coach, because breaking news, coaches have coaches. But I remember when I started coaching a few years ago, I really wanted to see the fruits of my work. Like I wanted to see it. I wanted to check the box. Okay, you are out now. You're on safe grounds, and we made it. You can pay me, and I can put a nice testimonial on my website. And my mentor at the time helped me shift this completely and say, this is not your problem. You're here to move people forward, but you might never see the fruit of your work. And sometimes the fruits of the coaching happens years after. Like you ignite a little shift, a little transition, but it takes time. So first, I would say before answering, is my client ready? I ask myself the question, are we both okay with taking the time? Like, are they okay to spend some time in this uncomfort and difficult space? And am I ready to see them spend some time in this difficult place? And I say it's vulnerable to share because it's kind of weird, no? When you offer a service, you might be able to say, well, I with me, it's guaranteed. And you have a lot of coaches who do that. You say, with me, in 3 weeks, you're out of your misery. I think it's unfair, and it's not how people work, right? And so how do I know if they are ready? Well, first I would ask them, like, how do you feel? Do you feel ready? Do you feel? And then I try to discern whose voice is responding. Um, is it a critical inner voice? Is it internalized parent's voice? Is it someone who will reply in one way so to make me react another way? Um, uh, but I would say it's a case by case basis, and also people are always ready to move forward. So that's I'm going to use the metaphor of the always moving sand. Um, I coach with a prerequisite of we don't know where we are going, and we don't know how big the transformation is going to be. We don't know how it's going to end. And maybe what we need is a little transformation, and that's all that's going to happen today. Or it's a huge one. And so my work is to move them forward, but I cannot decide for them, um, you know, when is a good time and how much they move forward. That's also the nature of the coaching work, is that as I practice it, I don't force someone to. And also, I'm a leadership coach, so it's written in the name. I'm helping the client to lead themselves, so they have to make the leap in the end. Because that's for me, that's the most sustainable ones. If I push them, they can fall, and they can retreat back. But if they are stepping forward, yeah. And I'm turning around your question. And to be frank, I think nobody knows when they are ready until they go.
Amen.
So that's when it's when the people jumped or did it, or and I'm speaking in vague terms because I have so many examples in my head, of situations. But feel free. Does that make sense, Katie? Or yeah, yeah, okay. Or if feel free to share like a specific example if you have one in mind.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That's great. Thank you.
I saw someone picking up a book from a library. Was it to read us a quote or ask a question? Yes.
Malcolm, if you unmute yourself.
Okay, there we
There
go.
you go.
Yeah, I was just checking a little bit of Arabic vocabulary relating to deserts. I don't know whether there's some deep meaning in it, but in Arabic, the same word is used for a spring of water like an oasis and for an eye. Does that have any particular meaning? Perhaps the all-seeing eye in the desert.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. I'm going to mark that down. I don't know, frankly. I'm currently learning a little bit of Arabic. So, but I just know in Islam, which is very prevalent in Morocco, at least, the desert has also a very, very big importance, like a very, very big spiritual meaning. And um, I know Prophet Muhammad also goes to the desert before, speaking or, I know today's topic is not a big surprise for spiritual people like you all are. Um, but yeah, I find this parallel and also I think it's an important reminder as we live in a society that really values speed and clarity and performance. And so when you go through change or through any transition, there might be, well, you can move quickly through change, but at least the people I see, because they come for help, there is a bit of desert in it, and it's good to, as that spirit, through spirituality, we can be all voices to say, well, it's not negative, like you're not falling, you're not failing uh, because you feel like that. It might be part of your deeper transformation, and it might announce something amazing happening soon. So sooner or later, but yeah.
And I think in Arab Muslim thought, in culture, the desert is regarded as something that's characterized by purity, and the Bedou were always regarded as the purest exemplars of Arab virtues. They lived in the desert.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's some aspect that I'm still learning. But no, it's beautiful, and it's one of the. I'm going a bit off topic, but it's such a blessing to live here and to learn from this spirituality as well, and to see all the links or the proximity that we can have with other faiths. It's a little aspect like that I really crave. So I'm going to mark your points down and keep them.
Any other questions? 1 second. Jimmy's next.
Thank you for that lovely speech. It personally resonates with me because often I go to the desert, but sometimes we can just go to that low moment just to pray, and then we can quickly come out of the desert. It doesn't mean that we always need to stay there. Sometimes it's just a quiet moment of prayer in the desert. And I want to get your feedback. What do you think about that? Often it can be just for a moment that you need to go to the desert.
No, exactly. With my I'm using my clients, I'm sorry, a lot, but I often tell them make it work for you. No, in practice. So when I say when is the next time you're going to the desert, if you can book a flight and physically go to the real desert and go there, beautiful. But we don't need that. It can be like Jesus said, a closed door. It might be just closing a door and putting the phone away and staying in silence in a place of low stimulation, where you can go back to your senses and just feel the silence and be in it. And I don't know how is it for you when you mentioned those small moments of desert, but I've experienced that the more you do it, the easier it is to go in and out, no? Like there is a switch, switch.
Exactly. Exactly. There are days when I feel you need to be there, and simply a quiet prayer brings you out of the desert. Then there may be days when every single morning before you walk out in the world, you have to go in the desert in order to walk out in the world. So it can take you back and forth. That desert is that quiet place that you go every day in your life to get you prepared for the world. Be it with a coach, or be it with your God, or be it with yourself. You need that desert to come sometime to face the world.
Mm, yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully said, Jimmy. Pauline, what I was struck with by your beautiful presentation, and also following up on Sherry's question, was the question that you suggested people could ask, which is, okay, I'm here, and what am I supposed to be learning right now? And so I think that flips the whole desert, because you described it beautifully. And I think our tradition has symbolism in everything in the Bible, and the desert for Jesus, which I'm so glad you referenced this. I was thinking about it right away. Would be, temptation, and I think we all have to go through periods of testing and questioning. And the biggest challenge is that we imagine this is the path we should be on, and we wish it would hurry up and get to it. And so I'm thinking with your, probably secular clients, while they wouldn't relate to a religious story, I do think flipping it and saying, what are you incubating now, or what do you need to learn right now in this moment? And that takes the pressure off of it, because the idea that I need to get out of the desert implies that, like, I know there's somewhere else I need to be. But if we can be living in divine providence, we can say that there's a reason I'm here. If I rush it, I'm not going to learn it. So I just need to be at peace in wherever I'm, and trust that God hasn't abandoned me. I'm not failing at what I'm supposed to be doing, because I'm supposed to be right here, right now. So that's what I was struck with the way that you flip the desert into not a place that we rush through, but a place that you can go back and forth to, as Jesus did and Jimmy just described, but also just this is where you should be right now, and that's perfect, because that's what you need to learn as a spiritual being in this existence. And maybe it comes into a time when you come into your ministry like Jesus did, or maybe when Moses did, or maybe it's just that's where you're going to learn the most. So I really loved how you flipped that from how do I get out of the desert, which your clients are asking you essentially, to this is what you could learn while you're here.
Mm. Yeah, I call a moment of transition leadership laboratories. That's one way. I'm like, the transition moment are the best laboratories to grow your leadership. So leadership, it's a kind of a buzzword, but it's basically like, how do you lead yourself through life? Like, how do you decide how you're going to use your time and your energy? And when you said your most secular clients, I smile, because it's really something I love playing with, almost like how much spirituality can I invoke or not based on who is in front of me. And it's not necessarily linked to the level of faith or like, spiritual practice. Some secular clients are very open to hearing spiritual wisdom. And for some apparently, practicing clients, they are not like, they are close to that because they're with their coach, their leadership coach, and they don't want to hear about the Bible or whatever. But I would say being able to flip from how do I get out of this to what do I have to learn from this? It requires a level of faith into providence, into God, or into life that can variate from people to people, or even from, like, I'm taking myself as an example. Like, I'm able to switch easily when I have faith in God and I know I'm his daughter and he means the best for me, and da da da. And some days I'm like, like I'm tired, like it doesn't make any sense. And when the days where my faith is weaker, my confidence in God is weaker, it's harder to make the switch, if it makes sense. So an image I find works really well is, like always, is an image of a garden. So if say your transformation is like is a seed, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna like try to pull from the seed so that the plants comes out? No, you have to plant and wait. You have to plant, and it takes time. And some clients I even sent like a video, fast track video of seeds opening up and making roots, and say it takes time. And from this, if you compare the seeds to what it makes, there is no way you could have invented the result. Like you don't know, and it's going to take time. So um, why not just, we're all part of nature. Why not follow the rule of nature? And yeah, it's uncomfortable. You feel like a little seed in a black hole with no light and no air and no purpose, but you're gonna you're gonna germinate eventually and grow and bear fruits. Just be patient. I don't say it
Just
so
be patient.
bluntly, but that's an image that can work also.
I think it's a brilliant metaphor, and certainly one that Jesus used all the time, right, with the sower and the seed, and the, you know, so beautifully described. Thank you, and thank you for all the folks who asked questions and comments today on it. Wherever you are is where you're supposed to be, and just ask God's guidance of what you can learn in it. So thank you, Pauline. I really appreciated that today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.